Is This Secure? It's a podcast about tech. I'm Michael. He's Curtis. Hey, Curtis.
Hello. I was thinking we could start this episode with a poll on whether I should be muted for the entire time or actually responding.
And actually, the odd thing about it is I was the one who established the poll, so we're not conducting it. And you're free to vote. IsThisSecure.com is the place to go if you'd like to register your voice on the matter. Elon Musk conducts poll on whether he should step down as Twitter's CEO. I'm looking at the real-time data on this poll, and right now, with 6.86 million votes in and 9 hours remaining on the poll, it's at 57% yes and 42% no. And I think that it's interesting because Elon followed this tweet up with another tweet saying, be careful what you wish for because you might just get it. And it kind of had me wondering if Elon has to step down because of this poll, if maybe like Roger Stone might become the new CEO of Twitter or something. And, you know, instead of the Twitter bird being the logo, they'll use the Nixon face on Roger Stone's back, his Nixon tattoo or something.
Yeah. Well, he might give it to Trump.
And by the way, those of you enjoying the show that we have posted for you, I apologize in advance. I'm a little bit flu afflicted, so you can hear it in my lungs. I mean, I'm just like, that's one of the downsides of this ultra sensitive condenser mic that I use. Like, it's picking up every imperfection in my respiratory system at the moment. So apologies in advance. So
I thought maybe that was a filter you're applying to it with your mixer is just so powerful you can apply a flu filter.
I like your new mic, by the way. We haven't really talked about it. We chatted up a little bit before the show tonight, and you got a new mic. What is it?
Yeah, so this is the Shure MV7X. It's very similar to the SM7B, but it's the podcaster version of it, so it's less than half the cost.
Why? Why is it? What have they changed?
Good question. I think it's a little bit less rugged. And it also is not as dynamic in terms of the range that it can work from as the SM7B, but it's right there in what you would care about for a voice recording. Not necessarily. I don't think you would use this mic if you were singing. So like if I wanted to break out into song, you're going to lose some of my amazing range with it. But
I don't want to hear that.
Speaking, you don't really trust me. Like the poll on that, like ironically, the poll right now for whether I should stay muted or not is 2 yes to 0. It would be I would vote 5 times,
which is 98% of our listening audience.
That's true so far, but we'll outdo Musk at some point in our followership. But so going back to this mic, it's supposed to be something that fills in that gap to where you want to start a podcast or you're already doing a podcast and you want to have more than one mic and you want it to look presentation-wise if you're doing video and then sound to sound like the SM7B, but you don't want to shell out $400 per mic if you had, 3 or 4 hosts of your show, which would be so interesting to hear 4 people all trying to step on each other's toes talking about any topic. But that's like the sweet spot for this mic. But what I liked about it is it's similar to what I was using before with the RE320, because the 320 is a step down from the 20 with the same compromises where you're losing a little bit of the dynamism, I guess, of the mic, but you're still getting a good dynamic microphone that's designed for voice communication. I just had a couple little issues with that one. One of them is the thing is really large, and I think you're considering getting RE20, and you'll find that too, that the length of that microphone it takes up a lot of space on your desk as you have it on a boom arm or on a desk mic.
Yeah, and it's heavy too. It'll be the second one I've owned.
Okay.
In fact, back in the early days when you and I first encountered one another in the world of podcasting, I was using an RE20 back in those days. And
that's why I liked you then. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm not even considering it. I actually pulled the trigger. I'm going to get an RE20 just because in the recording environment I'm in here, I feel like there's just too much background noise. I mean, you can hear the reverberation of the room that I'm in. I mean, this condenser mic really just sucks it all up, absorbs every bit of it, even with gating and limiting and all the microphone trickery that's being employed on this mic. And it's a fantastic mic. It sounds great. It's just, this is a bad environment for it. And I think an RE20 is just such a well-rounded mic. I will say that I do not like the SM7B at all. I feel like it is unduly getting praise and becoming the default go-to mic for the podcaster. I don't like the way they sound at all, which is why I'm surprised that I like the sound of this mic that you're on right now as much as I do. I don't understand. It really sounds great. The Rodecaster that you're using, is there a preset on that Rodecaster? Well, I'm using one too, but I mean, there's not a preset on these for the mic you're on right now, is there?
No, I went to just the basic dynamic microphone and then set it from there. And I'm using custom settings, but it's very close to what you would set up as the broadcast default for a dynamic mic. So, and yeah, so far I'm happy with it. I think the funny thing is for podcasters and streamers, just in general, anyone who does video, they like the look of the SM7B. I don't know if it's because Michael Jackson used it and there's lots of press, there's a lot of marketing around showing him in a studio with it, and everyone wants to be MJ for some reason. But I think there's a lot of aesthetic. I liked the way my voice sounded when I had an SM7B, but I'm also not the best judge of what is a great mic versus a good mic. I don't want to sound robotic, and I don't want you to hear all the background noise in my room and the squeakiness of my chair every time I move and talk with my hands. So I think the aesthetic was the first thing that podcasters and streamers went to. And then this mic, I think, is Shure's attempt of trying to make their name not get stuck with a vocal mic that has been shoehorned in for visual purposes into the podcast world, even though you almost never hear like serious negatives about it. But I think most of the people who listen to podcasts don't know the difference, just like me. Like, I know content. I don't know the quality of one mic versus another the way you do. But I really think that visual is at least 65-70% of it.
Or more.
And then, yeah, it could be. I would be.
That shows you what amateur hour we're dealing with in the podcasting universe, that the visual aesthetics of a microphone play so heavily into the decisions. I mean, you're buying an audio device, and to think that the visual aesthetics of that device play so heavily into whether or not people are going to view it as an appropriate purchase for them, utterly ridiculous. Although, I don't really know that there necessarily is any such thing as the best mic. It really comes down to your voice, what complements your voice the best. I might sound like complete ass on that mic you're on right now, but you sound great on it. You really...
Yeah, cool. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. Having said that, throw it away.
Let me go back to, because I used I think you had mentioned it at one point early on for me, is it MXL or MHL 990, I think?
That's the MXL.
Okay, yeah, it's a fairly priced mic, and I thought I sounded good and clear with it, but I could hear the other side. Like, I would sit in my garage in like a room that was sound treated to some level, at least on one side of it, but I could hear all the way on the other side of my house, my youngest son breathing with that microphone. It was so sensitive. I'm like,
now granted, he had severe respiratory issues that Curtis and his wife were not treating, but nevertheless,
at least we could hear it. That was the key. But it was just so weird to me. And then my son had that mic up until recently. He was using it in his room, and I asked him, like, have you been like live streaming, like playing video games using that mic? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, could you hear everything in our house that was going on? Like me on the phone with somebody downstairs? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, well, great. Glad to find out that you were live streaming me having a conversation about, what air pressure I need in my tires.
Like he's like, okay, I spawned in a terrible location, and in the background you hear, so the excretions should stop after 3 days, you're telling me. Is that
Right,
what?
so
But the test results were negative. Well, but why am I excreting?
I put the ointment on it, and it doesn't seem to make a difference. I feel balmy now, but
Okay, so anyway, Elon Musk today being December 18th, launched a Twitter poll asking users to vote on whether he should step down as Twitter's chief executive. The poll reads, should I step down as head of Twitter? I will abide by the results of this poll. And let me refresh the real-time results as of the moment of this recording. We're now at 7.15 million votes with 9 hours remaining. 57, I think it's going to continue tracking in this direction. 57% yes, and almost 49% no. So I just can't get over the follow-up tweet of "Be careful what you ask for, you just might get it."
I know.
Musk followed up.
He's going to let Vladimir Putin become the head of Twitter.
It wasn't immediately clear whether Musk has a replacement in mind should his followers vote him out. Twitter, which no longer has a communications department, didn't immediately respond to a request for comment. Isn't it absurd to think that a company like Twitter ever had a communications department? I mean, that's just like, I don't understand that. You take a bunch of people to whom, these are people who are hammers thinking everything looks like a nail, and they come from various corporate environments, and the corporate environments they're from, you have an HR department, you have a communications department, you have a payroll department, you have a this and a that department, and that's just how things are structured. So you get these types of people who come into an organization like Twitter. Most of them are significantly probably older than a vast portion of the user base of the product. And they come from these corporate environments, and they try to impose those systems and those mentalities on an organization like Twitter. And that's what results in someone like Elon Musk being able to come in and fire 85% of the staff and result in no perceptible difference to me as a user.
I would say there is a difference. Again.
Well, I agree with that, yes.
Yeah, I mean,
but in terms of it working.
No, even with that, it is faster and more responsive. Just the iOS Twitter app, I can actually, there's been a couple times where I would refresh and it would sit at loading.
Well, let me rephrase that. Yeah. No perceptible difference in the negative direction.
Yeah.
That's what
I mean, you can get into the, I don't know, the politics or public opinion part of it, which doesn't really matter to me when it comes to Twitter. I go there just to watch the world burn is what's happening on Twitter.
Exactly.
So if it's not burning, it's not working correctly, and it is burning. And
I can expose myself to whatever ideologies or viewpoints I choose. I don't need somebody to curate that for me. I'm a big boy. I'm able to wipe my own butt, and I further don't need an anonymous, faceless, nameless, unknown to me human being somewhere multiple states away curating things for me and deciding what it's safe for me to view. I just don't need it. And if Twitter moves in the direction of eliminating that wrapper, I'm fine with that. I know a lot of people are not fine with that, but that's okay.
Well, that brings you to like, what are the alternatives that people are going to go to? And Mastodon right now is the one they're going to. And I use Mastodon as well. Like, I'm in 2 different Mastodon servers, and I like them for the specific, like the people in there, just like a Discord chat. They're a member of that Mastodon instance because that they're interested in the same topic. And so it doesn't really bleed into politics or sports when it shouldn't. Like, these aren't sports related. One's gaming and the other is just a podcast. And it kind of sticks generally on topic with that. But if you're looking at Mastodon as a replacement for Twitter because they're not giving you the curated experience you used to have, you're like, if you're looking at it just as the open-ended Mastodon, just join and federate with everybody, it's open to everyone. Like, you're going to start blocking people and curating on your own. It's not really made for that unless you go into a niche community, and that means you're going to have very few people that you're talking to, and it's going to be an echo chamber immediately.
And it's I have noticed that a lot of the people who have left Twitter because they don't like the tone of things since Elon Musk took over. They don't like the unbanning of various accounts that have been unbanned. They don't like the now ongoing expression of various points of view. And so they've left Twitter and they've gone to Mastodon and they've begun cannibalizing one another because they are of the mentality that free speech shouldn't exist if somebody is offended by that speech, if somebody might be hurt by that speech. And I'm of the viewpoint, perhaps I'm just getting old and I'm clinging to silly, outdated, outmoded ideas. But it seems to me offensive speech, speech that might hurt somebody's feelings, speech that might be bothersome, speech that is not endorsed by the establishment is exactly the type of speech that's supposed to be protected. Nobody needs to protect agreeable speech. Nobody needs to surround approved, agreed upon speech with protections. That's never been the problem when it comes to free speech.
I mean, one thing that's always annoyed me when it comes to the whole argument about free speech is that free speech should be there to let somebody who normally isn't heard be heard, and then secondary and maybe even connected to, if you want to make an ass of yourself and say the most ridiculous things, you should be able to do that and also experience the private repercussions of what those actions are, not be taken out of the public square. That's not the purpose of the public square. It's to let you come out and do whatever you want to do. And then the community that you surround yourself with then decides how they feel about your actions. And if they agree with you, they'll hold you up on a pedestal. If they don't, they'll stone you. And I'm not saying that stoning is good, but they'll do whatever it is that they want to do to make it clear.
You heard it here first on This Secure? Curtis endorses Sharia law. It's really a milestone for this program, and I'm
just following up with beating somebody off with a phone.
Oddly enough, I'm already wearing a jalaba since we started this broadcast. I find it odd that we've gone down that road. I saw somebody.
I like to read trends.
I saw somebody post a message underneath an advertisement. I think it was it was an advertisement for, I don't remember what it was for. It doesn't matter. But somebody replied under the ads, I am going to block you now because I don't like the fact that you're giving money to Elon Musk, who gives a voice to racists. In my response, I replied underneath that tweet and I said, racists should be given a voice so that they can be identified and ridiculed. What do you want? What do you want to do? Do you want to send all of the nastiness of humanity underground so that nobody knows it exists and nobody can identify it and ridicule it and point it out to one another and be aware of it? Is that a better system? Is that a better way to live? Is that a better environment? I don't think it is. Don't you want to know what you're surrounded by? Don't you want to know what is in people's minds? I mean, to me, words on a screen are an optimal way of assessing how people really truly are thinking, because generally speaking, words on a screen are anonymous and people as a result are consequence free in large part. And as a result, people are more willing to express what they're really thinking and feeling. Well, I want to know what humanity really is thinking and feeling. I don't want a sanitized version of what humanity is thinking and feeling based on what social expectations have been put on people at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's the idea of the dark web versus the regular web. Everyone is scared of the dark web because it can represent whatever it is you don't want to deal with, or whatever you think the worst version of something is. And bad things definitely happen on the dark web, but dumb things happen on it too. I would much rather us be at a point where everyone is working on just the web and we're catching the idiots who are using, quote unquote, a dark web or private message boards, whatever it is they're doing, Mastodon instances that are not federated, and spreading their own echo chamber of hate. Get them out in the open. Again, let somebody tell you who they are. Was it Abraham Lincoln who had the amazing quote of saying, give everyone a Twitter account and they'll show you who they are?
I thought he said, where's the beef? I could be wrong about that.
That was him too, I believe.
Here I am showing my age again. So that's what's going on with Twitter. We've got another little bit of a Twitter soliloquy for you. Twitter blocks users from sharing Mastodon links. Twitter has blocked its users from sharing links to its social media rival Mastodon. I basically just said the same thing twice for you. Remove it in post.
Now we know that you're a duplicator.
Mastodon,
and we wouldn't have known that if you're on the dark web.
Mastodon is divided into groups called servers based on many topics, including the UK, snooker, that's snooker, and security. Twitter has blocked links to some of... I like snooker. No, it's snooker. Snooker. I'm a great snooker player. It's snooker. Be
careful what language you're using here, too. Like that's inappropriate, man.
And Twitter is also stopping users from adding links to their Mastodon account in their bios, calling them malware, according to this story at least. There's absolutely no, and this is from BBC, the BBC, by the way, there's absolutely no evidence to support the suggestion that Mastodon contains malware, malicious software that can harm your device. Mastodon said it gained hundreds of thousands of users in November, with some Twitter users seeking alternate platforms. The BBC has been unable to post links to the most popular Mastodon.social server, as well as more than 10 others, including a server for journalists and another for people in the UK. What are your thoughts on that? I have mixed feelings.
Yeah, I mean, first off, it is that fracturing into bulletin boards. We're going back to the internet the way it was before, when you had to go find the bulletin boards you wanted to connect to, and then that became the world you were in, and most people didn't connect to multiple bulletin boards, so you never really saw the overall landscape of how the early internet was acting. And again, I think there's a place for niche Mastodon servers, just like there's a place for Discord servers or Slack, places where you can go and have really targeted conversations about the things you're interested in. But when you lose the public square piece of it, which Mastodon tries to cover with their federation, which is the idea that one instance of Mastodon can communicate across other instances, and you can follow somebody from different servers and areas than what you're using. The problem is each moderation group within any one silo you're in within that federation, they can cut off other federations on a whim on whatever they want to do, and you're not even going to realize it until you go looking for that person from your instance, and you're like, oh, I can't see Michael anymore. I wonder why. Oh, it's because he was on, such and such instance, and the moderators of my Mastodon have decided that you're no longer appropriate for some reason. You like the color green, but we like the color blue on this instance, so too bad. You can't communicate across it. That's going to a version of the internet that we left years ago, and I don't look forward to it. And I think that everyone who leaves Twitter to go to this, like your average person, they don't know what they're going to, and they're going to go to one that's probably highly moderated, and they're going to lose the experience of being pushed. Because if you don't have people, first off, who disagree with you, that are legitimately disagreeing with you from an intelligent point of view, and two, you don't have idiots who are just trying to troll you, you're not going to grow. Because first off, the people who are legitimately disagreeing help you grow your opinion and help you refine your message, whatever it might be. And the trolls show you how to take out weak points. So when you make an argument, let's just pretend like this is a debating square that we're in, or the circle of discourse, and you have a good logical argument, but it's fundamentally weak in the way you're describing it, trolls are going to beat at that to help you get to a point to where your message not only is logically sound, but it's also well-formed in the way you present it. And so if you lose both sides of that, and there's probably other sides I'm not thinking of too, that just having anyone available in that square, that public square to communicate, because you also, I guess you also want people who are extremes of the same point of view, because you want to realize whatever your position is on something, most likely there's someone more extreme than you, equal to you, and less extreme than you, and you could learn something from all of them that either make you more legitimately believing in your position, or thinking, oh, you know what, maybe I I'm not like the extreme version of this point of view. I'm not so tied to that. So I'd compromise on that with something else if I needed to. Like, you need to hear that whole spectrum to find out where you are and make a decision on how you're going to present yourself and get better at presenting yourself through the practice of communication.
It sort of falls back out really on what I was saying a moment ago, which is that I want to know what others are thinking. I want to be exposed to that. I think it's going to make me a better thinker. I think it's going to give me a better impression of the world I live in. It's going to give me better arguments. It's intellectually beneficial. I don't see any benefit to siloing yourself. And I think that once people get over there and they realize the extent to which they've been siloed, surrounded by just an echo chamber, even the people who prior to leaving Twitter believed that that was what they wanted, I think when they get over there and actually experience it, I think you're right in what you said. They don't really know what they're headed into.
Yeah. But here's the question. Do you think they'll be back to Twitter from that?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I do.
So let's talk about really quick the thing with Elon that he's done so well with this, with the poll, with what I would say is a Cold War with Mastodon by marking that as malware. That's very similar to what Microsoft and Google do to each other over search results and Chrome browser versus the old Internet Explorer, now Edge. It's very similar to their back and forth they do, trying to get you to use one over the other, and not outright saying something is bad, but trying to imply through your message that, you know, you're at risk if you do this thing. What he's doing is creating engagement. He's getting people to talk about the things he's doing, whether he makes a good choice or a bad choice, whether, like, I think when he did that poll for him being the CEO, he knows that Twitter, just like I said, once they want to watch their own house burn. So they're going to say they want him to not be the CEO just to see what he's going to do, to see if he'll call the bluff. And Twitter isn't really going to care. If he doesn't step down, he'll get ripped, but that's engagement, so he's okay with that.
It's a win-win, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, like he doesn't lose in this. Like, I think the only thing he loses is, has he cut enough? I hate people losing their jobs at Twitter, but like, has he made it profitable while it's reached new levels of engagement? Like, that's the question, I guess. Is Twitter going to be able to survive financially, being a private business versus a publicly traded one? We'll find that out for sure in the next 6 months. But you can't fault him for, if you're looking at it just from the view of engagement. Because as I look at this article that was posted today at 3:38 Pacific time, they said that it was around 2.8 million votes at that time. And you said it's what now?
7.75
million people on Twitter individually have voted for this. And I get that there's bots in that too and everything, but that's a lot of people focused on one thing. And that's a very powerful tool to use.
You know, people don't really have the ability to visualize 1 million of anything, let alone 7 million. I was listening to somebody talk about the population of China earlier today, which is approaching 1 billion people, or maybe it's over 1 billion at this point.
I thought it was, but I don't know. I don't know for sure.
People don't really, you can't visualize that. I mean, the largest thing that maybe we can visualize as physical units is the full seated attendance of a stadium, maybe. Something like that. But we don't really get a lot of opportunities as human beings to visualize hugely vast numbers of physical items. And in this case, we're talking about, I mean, a football stadium, let's say, what's it hold at the most? 80,000 people?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
that's
think about World Cup.
That's nothing. And when you're standing in the midst of it, it looks like just a sea of humanity. 50,000. I mean, you would need what? 20. If you had a stadium of 50,000 people, you would need 20 times that just to hit 1 million. Yeah. Is that right? Is my math correct? I think it is.
Say it again.
If you had 50,000 people, you would need 20 times that to hit 1 million people.
believe that's correct.
Yeah.
I was doing some different math really quick.
So
Go ahead and finish your point first. I'll come back to it.
We don't have the ability to visualize 7.75 million people doing anything. Like, just, it's such a vast sea of humanity that the human mind can't wrap itself around it. I don't really guess I have a point there other than to say that, yes, what you're saying is entirely correct. It's extremely powerful. And I don't think that really people quite have wrapped their brains around that.
Yeah. So like, I like to think of it also as a marketer, because that is, I mean, he's selling a product. I mean, he sold his other companies. Tesla is a luxury brand that a lot of people who can't afford it want. So he's good at creating a desire. He also uses scarcity as a benefit, not as a failure. But let's look at this with the 7 million we have now, and you could assume that number is going to grow, but let's just stick at 7 million. And if I assume that 10% of those people, which is the best you could ever hope for if you're trying to sell a product, is 10% of your market, or that's the average you can expect, somewhere around 7 to 10% of those people are actually going to convert in from a lead to an actual person who's going to buy your product. So right now, the product that Elon Musk is slowly trying to sell is verified accounts at $8 an account. That's just over 700,000 people that might buy it. So that times $8, that's $5.6 million every month just on blue check marks if he gets 10% of the people who are focused on whether or not he should be the CEO or not. Of course, that's nowhere near the money that Twitter needs to be operational. But if he really does make it a streamlined operation and you can get $5.6 million just on people with a blue check mark, I mean, that's pretty amazing. What if he got that number higher, like if it's 20% of 700 or 7 million? I mean, the people are the product in this, and he's showing that he can be a lightning rod to create engagement. He's not dumb. I don't know that I don't know what his end game is, and I don't know if it's good or bad. There's too much outstanding to be looked through to make a real decision, but he knows how to bring people together to pay attention to what he's doing, and that alone makes this like the marketing platform to be the envy of everyone. 7 million people focused on him in a 24-hour period is not bad.
As you were speaking just now, a sort of ringing sound started accompanying your voice. Do me a favor, disconnect from Clean Feed real quick and reconnect.
Do you still hear it like right now?
Yes.
You do?
And
okay,
if I mute you on my board, it goes away. So
right, I'll be right back.
Yeah. We'll go into this, and now that he's disconnected, it's gone.
Well, actually, how do I get disconnected from a Clean Feed that I'm running? I guess close the browser. Let's see what happens. It might cut you from it. We'll see.
Okay, we'll find out. That'll be interesting. Well, I'm still in there, so he should be able to join. While that's going, I'll go into this fusion story with historic explosion and long-sought fusion breakthrough. This is from science.org. More energy out than in. For 7 decades, fusion scientists have chased this elusive goal known as energy gain. At 1 a.m. on 5 December. And by the way, Curtis, as soon as you rejoined, I could hear the ringing sound again.
Oh, really?
It might be in your mixer. Try powering your Rodecaster off and then back on.
All right, let me mute myself here, and I will be right back on the fly troubleshooting.
Yeah, well, it is a tech show, so I think it's only fair that the audience witnesses the mastery with which we work these issues out in real time. At 1 a.m. on 5 December, researchers at the National Ignition Facility in California finally did it, focusing on 2.05 megajoules of laser light, focusing that many megajoules of laser light onto a tiny capsule of fusion fuel and sparking an explosion that produced 3.15 megajoules of energy, the equivalent of about 3 sticks of dynamite. They say this is extremely exciting. It's a major breakthrough. That's from a plasma physicist at MIT. A guy who leads the team there says that it's wonderful. I'm so proud of the team. Okay, blah, 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 blah. The result announced today by officials at the U.S. Department of Energy represents a shot in the arm for fusion researchers who've long been criticized for over-promising and under-delivering. Fusion holds the tantalizing promise of plentiful, carbon-free energy without many of the radioactive headaches of fission-driven nuclear power. But getting hydrogen ions to fuse into helium and release energy requires temperatures of millions of degrees Celsius, conditions that are hard to achieve and sustain. The NIF result shows it's possible at least for a fraction of a second, and despite the fanfare, fusion power stations are still a distant dream. The atom is a powerful thing, is it not? I think, let's see, what milestones do we have in human history? There's the splitting of the atom. That's an obvious one. Human flight. That's a seemingly obvious one. Curtis, are you back, by the way?
I am.
Okay,
Any difference?
it's gone now. So
Okay, that's very interesting.
yeah, that must have been in your mixers. So
I would add to the human feats as me being able to turn off and back on within 20 minutes my Rodecaster.
I was kind of
Pro
worried
too.
that you would have to go in and reconfigure your audio devices and whatnot in the
Luckily I
browser.
saved it.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
So we've got the splitting of the atom, nuclear fission. We've got human flight, not necessarily going in order here, by the way. You know something?
We're going reverse.
You know something that's really weird about human flight is the extent to which we take it for granted. But if you look at the broader timeline of human existence, how long human beings have trod the soils of this earth, human flight, it would be like if you had a 10-yard long measurement, just a line drawn that's 10 yards long, and that represents the history of human existence. In the period of time in which we've been able to fly would be like a millimeter.
Well, I mean, it's like, not to cut you off there, but really quick, because I want to tie the two things together, because I think it goes really well. What you mentioned about the understanding or being able to conceptualize the scale of 1 million people or 1 billion people, that the human brain can't do it. Like when you think about the scales of these things, of how long have humans existed, and then how long have we lived in this technologically advanced world we're in right now, and then compare that also, like zoom out even farther, like how much time will our solar system even exist in comparison to how long the universe is expected to exist if you subscribe to the idea of the heat death being how the universe will end, and expansion being the end all for everything. Like the solar system existing, and so humanity doesn't even exist other than a sliver of the time that the solar system exists, and the solar system is such a small sliver that doesn't even show up on the scale when you think about the universe. So like these scales are so ridiculous. So it's important to realize how miraculous it is that you, who's listening to this, happens to be alive at a time that there is human flight, because it's only within the last several human generations of life that it's even been a possibility.
Well, it goes
the
even...
The scale is ridiculous.
It's even like... It's more profound than that, I think, in that if you look at the existence of our solar system, it's so minuscule relative just to the existence of our galaxy. Mm-hmm. And never mind the universe as a whole. I mean, there are clouds of galaxies. I mean,
right. Yeah, you're right. The scale is it's taking it too far out to the extreme, because you could even go, galaxy or even solar system to planets, or planets to the sun. We can't fathom that the scale or the ratio difference between it. Anyway,
I think I've said this. I think I've said this on a previous podcast at some point, but I saw this on a BBC space series maybe 15, 20 years ago. And this guy, actually, it was, who's the guy from Jurassic Park? Sam Neill.
Yeah,
Sam Neill
played Grant, yeah.
Yeah, he's standing on a beach, and he scoops up a handful of sand, and he goes, "You're standing on a beach. You scoop up a handful of sand. How many grains of sand are in your hand? 100,000, 200,000. Now imagine, if you will, how many grains of sand are an entire beach. It's incomprehensible. It escapes human scale. Now imagine how many grains of sand exist on the planet Earth. Multiply that number times 1 million, and that is the number of stars that exist in the universe. That, that it's
It is.
it hurts. Like you get a slight brain bleed even considering that concept. Not that number. It's beyond a number. It's more of a concept than a number because it's so unfathomably large. It's why when I hear people say with certainty they don't believe that there's other life in the universe, it's such a laughable thing to me because every one of those stars is the potential center of a solar system with planetary bodies orbiting it. What is the mathematical possibility that somewhere out there, somehow, some way, there isn't a body orbiting a star somewhere that's the proper distance from the star, that has the proper mix of elements and various other chemicals and substances to facilitate life, that has the proper gravitational pull. It's
You're
like
taking a very carbon-based life form approach to it.
Actually, yes. I mean, who's to say even that those conditions are even that's what we understand the necessary conditions for life to be. So it makes life even more likely.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, the unlikely thing to me in it is the likelihood. Sorry, this is awkward. So
Please, Curtis, no double negatives or double positives on this show.
How about double entendres? Are those okay? But the thing that seems least likely to me is that any two forms of life, whatever they are, like life has to be used as a loose descriptor of something that thinks and acts outside of just its own existence. It interacts with its environment to extend its existence, or getting into intelligent life, it does something useful other than recreate itself more times. Because there's so many different ways you could have life be that you used to have to give a generic descriptor. It's something that interacts with something else, whether it's for procreation, resource gathering, whatever, it doesn't matter.
That's my favorite criteria.
Is your favorite? Yeah, well, you could practice that one if you want to. We are in this bathtub, remember. But with that, the assumption that any two versions of some form of life would ever interact with each other is so unlikely that that's the amazing thing. That I don't think that they'll, like, I want to believe in the idea that there could be other intelligent life that we'll get to interact with. The likelihood, so I mentioned how miraculous it is that you exist right now at this point in time when technology is at this point that it is. The likelihood that you're going to exist at the time that first contact with some other life it's bigger than any lottery you ever would experience, and the likelihood that you're going to get to be alive for it is so unlikely that it would again be miraculous. Because first off, I think that whatever conditions they are to create those forms of life, first off, they're logically not going to be able to communicate with each other in some way that would make sense. Like, I believe also there's another piece of it that we forget regularly, which is scale. So when you go from the quantum level up to what we experience on the level we're at, and then you can go higher even than that like the chances that there would be intelligent life that we could interact with that lived in a scale that was similar enough to us that we could understand it is so unlikely that it's impossible as a result of it. And I guess that's what I'm saying too, with the chance that you will be alive at the point that our version of life interacts with some other version of life is so unlikely to make it impossible.
Curtis, I don't think you'll be around for it, but I'll be just fine. Thank you.
You'll be here? Well, I mean, like, I do eat a lot of McDonald's French fries, so I guess the numbers are on my side.
I'll be just fine. Don't you worry about me.
Well, I guess the question is if I would even be considered part of that intelligent life. I've heard opinions that would say no.
Going back to the timeline of human existence.
Let's go the other direction, though. Like, start from the simplest, earliest one rather than such amazingly short in the timeline. If you think about like fire.
Well, that's kind of the point I want to make. Well, maybe it is. I don't know. You'll hear what the point I'm making
go ahead.
and then decide. But
I disagree.
If you, and that's, is this secure? Have a good night, ladies and gents. If you look at the way someone lived in the year 900 and compare how that person lived in the year 1200, highly similar. I mean, very few differences. Compare the person living in the year 1200 to the person living in the year 1500 at the time of the, let's say in the 1500, the time of the Tudor dynasty. Very few differences, really. Fast forward another 300 years. The 1800s, not terribly different. A few technological advances, but by and large, not a profoundly improved quality of life. And then suddenly there's this spark where technological advancement just shoots like a rocket at an exponential sort of logarithmic level. And I'm kind of wondering what you think the catalyst of that is. What's that spark? I mean, a lot of people point to the advent or the invention of or the implementation of the transistor, but I think it's got to go earlier than that.
No, it's learning to use like gear, using a gear to magnify human output to be able to manufacture. So early manufacturing is what I would say.
Didn't they have geared systems in ancient times? I mean, they find fossilized gears and shit.
Yeah, but like what I mean is getting to the point of like right before manufacturing hits, because a lot of what you're saying goes along with manufacturing. But like even before that, we start to expand the faster and better we can do things and repeatably. Because before that, you're living in a world where everything is bespoke that's created. The furniture, the clothes. The clothes are already starting to be in machines. Like you have looms and stuff like that already. But when it comes to all the regular things, you don't have to spend, like we're starting to take the mind share of time that you would spend just getting an abode for you and your family and then keeping yourself secure against like the elements is a majority of your time in collecting food to be ready for the lean times, whatever your climate was in, or whatever climate you're in. But some of those things start to go away to where less and less of your mind share is required for it. And it really starts at the point of mass production of items, and also where writing gets to the point to where reading and writing is starting to become democratized across the population in any one pocket, whether it's Europe or in Asia, Middle East, Africa. That's a big deal too. But I would even go to the point of like farming. So some of those machines getting to the point of farming. So the moment you can produce more food on your farm than you need for your family, and you've created a market now for it to sell, that was a big turning point for humanity, to not spend all of its time trying to think about tomorrow, but thinking about next week, next month, next year. And that's a turning point to where when you have a lot of minds doing that, you're able to apply what you already know in ways that can exponentially benefit you, where in the past before that, people just didn't have the need to do it. When they did, when somebody was able to sit and write stuff and think through stuff, they were thinking about the philosophies of freedom or what makes me, or what's my religious context to the people around me, or to whatever deity I support. Those are what you would put, those were the lofty ideas where you thought you could make your fellow man better. And then once we had the beginnings of a manufacturing/industrial revolution and democratization of reading and writing, so that we now have a way to store things easier, that's what triggers the massive explosion that happens.
You know, you were saying earlier that we as humans are so lucky to be alive at a time when human flight and things of that nature are occurring. But I think
I would say there's a flip to that coin too, which is, doesn't it suck that we're alive at this time? Because 500 years from now, it's going to be even more different potentially. And also, doesn't it suck that we weren't born 500 years earlier because life was simpler? Like, so I say that, and I do believe that, it's amazing we're alive right now with the things we have, but there's other sides to that coin too. Not to cut off your point, sorry.
Sorry, my kids are talking to me while I'm in the middle of doing a podcast. Apparently,
they sit in front of a mic.
Apparently, they want me to be a parent. I don't know what that's all about, but
you'll be surprised to find out I did a Twitter poll whether you should be a parent today, and you're losing.
Well, maybe I wanted to lose. I don't know.
Well, you don't know what losing is in this poll.
The point I was going to make is, you were saying how lucky we are to be alive at any given period of time, but really, I think frequently about how lucky we are to be alive, just period. I mean, if you look at the processes that are occurring in your body that keep you alive, if you look at if you go back to Anatomy and Physiology 101 and you're learning about protein synthesis and how various cells in your body are manufacturing different proteins and these there's an mRNA strand that's being generated. It's like a complementary copy of your DNA, and then that comes out and feeds through a ribosome, and then that determines what amino acids get sucked into a chain to make a protein. And it's such an incredibly complicated process that the fact that it even works at all is amazing. And if it were to not work properly, you would be dead. You've got all of these complex processes that somehow carry on and continue working within your body. And then you have the universe that wants you dead. You have a planet that wants you dead. You have weather systems. You have predatory life that wants you dead. You have diseases. We have gamma rays in the universe. We have planetary bodies slamming into our planet. I mean, just the list goes on and on and on about all the different ways in which we should be dead, all the different means by which the universe wants us to be dead. And just the fact that you wake up in the morning and suck in a breath of air is really rather miraculous. And sometimes if I get a little down and depressed and feeling sorry for myself or just not having a good day, sometimes I reframe how I'm thinking about things in that way. And it really does a lot to, it causes me to put the box of razor blades down for just a few more minutes.
Yeah, well, I mean, everything you just said, too, one of the things I was thinking about with the complex system that is the human body, the complex biological and neurological system that creates us, that to think that you could fall into the trap to say everything has to work just right for you to take that breath, but that is a trap because in reality, your body isn't all working correctly right now. It's working, but you have disease, you have environmental factors, you have the fact that you were sitting on your leg and it fell asleep and so it's not working, and then you have every other person who has all these other unique ways that their body is working, not working, their neurological system is working or not working, but we're all still alive and interacting with each other. So you definitely have to take that step back to realize that at least because I'm going to hold true to what I said earlier about other life in the universe. So I'm only focusing on our version of life that we experience and what lets us interact with each other. It is this amazing thing, but it's also like life itself is just showing up, surviving, and doing the next thing, like doing a next thing. It almost doesn't even matter that much what the intention behind it is, just the keep moving, and the momentum of that will keep you moving in a good way. Like that could sound negative, and I don't mean that, but like you don't have to be at 100% to take that breath. You just need to be at a percentage that allows your lungs, your brain, your nervous system, your circulatory system, all these things that all could be experiencing a down day, or like what we would think about as a down day, they can experience that and they keep you moving. So we're not as fragile as sometimes it's easy to make yourself believe, but you are also correct that all these external forces, they're not in it for the same thing you are, but life always moves forward and life will adapt to whatever the circumstances in that moment are even if you aren't trying to. And ultimately, I'd say that when you take that breath, this is my sage advice for the podcast, is enjoy that gift for what it is, because it is such a unique moment in a universe of unique moments that most of them will never get recorded. You just recorded something that is your body doing the best it can to keep moving forward. just join it and be in unison with that moment, and don't get down. Like don't let any of the stuff, because like I didn't have it in our list of articles, but I saw something last week that was saying that younger generations, so this is where I get to be the old curmudgeon guy now, which isn't too far from my real personality, that younger generations are actually super nervous, like they're experiencing depression and anxiety because of what we're saying the environment, like the climate of the future is going to be, that we've not left them a planet that's sustainable. And that might be true. I don't know. I'm not a climatologist, so I can't say definitively anything. And I don't think even climatologists can say definitively. We don't know what the world is we're handing off to the next generation is. Is it, what are the different categories I'm thinking about? Is it environmentally? Is it societally? Is it industrially? Technology? Any of these things, are they geared in the direction of positivity? I don't know, and maybe not for some of them. But again, that adaptability of life, we've given the younger generation such a negative spin on things that they're just accepting what they've been given. And that really makes me sad, because yeah, some of these things are not great. And hopefully this fusion breakthrough is enough to start turning things around, because even not as a climatologist, just polluting our environment just as a sane statement is bad. Like we should try to reduce anywhere we can. And like there has to be a complex matrix of how you work that out. Like I need to reduce pollution, but I also need to not put different factions of our society in a negative situation in terms of their levels of poverty or being able to get the resources they need. Like I have to take all that into account as I also try to do the same thing, which is reduce pollution. It would be great to think that we can come up with some magic/science solution with fusion that will take out some of the barriers to where we can give something equally to the masses to give them energy with less pollution. Realistically, though, nothing is that simple. Everything has a trade-off. Everything has a cost to it. We just don't know what the costs of fusion are yet completely. I'm sure some scientists know. But the deal I'm trying to get to is that life always works forward and finds a way. So even if we have left the next generation with less than what we were handed, that doesn't mean they've been handed zero. There's enough for them to move forward and create amazing new things and continue to make breakthroughs that hopefully do reduce the cost of each negative thing that we've experienced. And it makes me sad to think that these younger generations maybe don't get out of bed as easily as we do, because they're already burdened by what they think is the perceived negativity of the future we're handing off to them.
What did I tell you, Curtis? 57 minutes in, and we've only made it through 3 news stories.
You're right.
Okay, this is this secure? We hope you've enjoyed this show. It's a show about technology. Visit our website, isthisSecure.com, and that's where you can find everything you need. Bye, Curtis.
Till next time.